My name is Henley, and the night everything ended began with a name badge that read, Henley, housekeeper. I was standing in the grand lobby of the Pines at Genesee, high in the foothills west of Denver, where the air smells like pine even inside marble halls. The woman at the check-in table slid the badge across the counter like she was passing me a death notice. My mother-in-law, Cora, appeared at my elbow in a champagne silk gown, smiling the way people smile when they finally get to say the quiet part out loud. "You're just staff tonight, dear," she said, loud enough for the circle of hedge fund wives to hear. "No seat at the table. No plate. Family only." My husband, Lucas, arrived a moment later, already loosened by whiskey. He looked at the badge clipped to my dress, at the empty space where my chair should have been, and he laughed. A real laugh, warm and easy. The same one he used when a deal closed in his favor. "Relax, Han," he said, reaching past me for a glass of wine meant for someone else. "Food's for family." 5 years of marriage, 3 years of waking before dawn to save failing companies while he slept, 18 months of quietly rescuing his father's manufacturing business from bankruptcy so his family name wouldn't die in shame, and I wasn't family enough for a chair. I reached for the ring he'd put on my finger the day he told me I was the smartest woman he'd ever met. 2 carats, chosen more to impress his partners than to please me. The metal was warm from my skin. I slid it off slowly, deliberately, letting the chandeliers catch every facet as it left my hand. The soft click it made when it touched the linen tablecloth was louder than the string quartet. "Then I'm no longer yours," I said, calm, clear, steady enough that the words carried to the farthest tables. Lucas's laugh died in his throat. 300 of Denver's wealthiest people suddenly had front row seats to the exact moment a marriage ended. I turned and walked out past the valet stands, past the Bentleys and the Range Rovers, past the whispers already starting to spread like wildfire down the mountain. My heels were steady on the gravel. My hands didn't shake. Not yet. In the car, driving down the winding road with the city lights flickering on below me, I felt something inside my chest crack wide open. Not rage. Not yet. Just a cold, crystalline clarity. They thought they had put me in my place. They had only just handed me the keys to leave it forever. That was the night I stopped pretending I belonged at their table. And it was only the beginning. I knew it was coming long before the badge. It lived in the small things first. The way my husband called my company your little project, while I pulled all-nighters turning around restaurants and factories that employed hundreds of people. The way my mother-in-law introduced me as Lucas's wife who keeps busy, while wearing the diamond earrings I'd paid for after I quietly saved their family business from foreclosure. The way they both smiled when they said it, like the joke was too obvious to need explaining. I grew up in Pueblo, raised by a single mom who cleaned motel rooms so I could eat. I paid for college waiting tables and studying accounting at night. I learned early that competence doesn't announce itself with noise. It just keeps the lights on when everyone else is panicking. That's what I did for them. Kept the lights on. A few years ago, when the market crashed the second time, my father-in-law sat in their kitchen and cried because the manufacturing company his grandfather started was weeks from shutting down. 200 families about to lose everything. Lucas was in Aspen closing some private equity deal and didn't come home. So I did. I worked 16-hour days for 18 months, renegotiating union contracts, pivoting production lines, finding buyers for equipment we no longer needed. I did it for pennies compared to what the big firms wanted. I never put my name on anything. I just handed the company back to them breathing, profitable, alive. My father-in-law died 6 months later believing his son had saved it. Lucas never corrected him. He thanked me once, in bed, half asleep, like I'd picked up his dry cleaning. Then he rolled over and told me I should wear more color to the next partner dinner so I didn't look so serious. I kept the evidence anyway. Not because I thought I'd need it. Because I'm wired that way. Every discrepancy in the private equity fund he managed, every personal expense slipped into a portfolio company, every investor dollar rerouted to a vacation or a watch or a hotel suite that smelled like someone else's perfume. I photographed it, encrypted it, stored it in a folder I named insurance. I told myself marriage was protection. even from someone's worst version of themselves. Then came the night I let myself into our Wash Park townhouse carrying grocery bags and heard Lucas on speakerphone in the bedroom. She actually thinks her little consulting gigs matter, he was saying, laughing that warm, easy laugh again. The housekeeper badge at Zuri's engagement party is going to be perfect. Time she learned the difference between real money and playing dress-up. My mother-in-law's voice floated through the speaker, delighted. Exactly. Help us help, no matter how well-dressed. I stood in the hallway holding milk and eggs and felt the last thread of hope snap. I set the bags down without a sound. I walked to my office, opened the insurance folder, and started writing the anonymous letter that would end his career. While they planned my humiliation, I planned theirs. And I did it the way I do everything, quietly, thoroughly, and without raising my voice. The week before the party, I stopped sleeping. I'd sit at my desk in the dark, 2 monitors glowing, spreadsheets open for a failing brewery in Fort Collins while the insurance folder waited in the background like a loaded gun. I'd catch my reflection in the black window and barely recognize the woman staring back. Eyes too wide, mouth set too hard, someone holding herself together with nothing but willpower and caffeine. I kept thinking, if I just work harder, save one more company, make one more perfect lemon tart for Thursday dinner, maybe they'll finally see me. But they never saw me. They saw what I did for them, never who I was. Some nights I'd walk through the townhouse after Lucas was asleep and touch the things that were supposed to prove we belonged together. The framed photo from our wedding where he's looking at the camera and I'm looking at him. The watch I gave him the year I turned the family company around. The closet full of his pressed shirts. I still starched exactly 1 inch at the collar because that's what a good wife does. I'd stand there in the quiet and feel the weight of every morning I woke up at 5 to make his coffee the way he liked it while I reviewed profit and loss statements for strangers who at least said thank you. I started crying in the shower, so he wouldn't hear. I cried for the girl from Pueblo who thought love would feel like safety. I cried for the woman who had saved 200 jobs and still wasn't family enough for a chair. I cried because part of me still wanted him to walk in, see me folding his shirts with tears running down my face, and finally ask what was wrong. He never did. Instead, the night before the party, he came home late smelling like someone else's perfume and told me not to overdress tomorrow. You don't want to pull focus from Zuri, he said, already scrolling his phone. I stood in our bedroom doorway holding the black dress I'd chosen, simple, elegant, the kind you could wear to a celebration or a funeral, and felt something inside me go very still. I realized I wasn't protecting him anymore. I was protecting the version of myself who still believed I needed their approval to be whole. That version died quietly that night, somewhere between the smell of Chanel No. 5 that wasn't mine and the soft click of his phone's screen going dark. When I hung the dress up, my hands didn't shake. When I opened the insurance folder again and attached the last files, I didn't hesitate. I wasn't doing this because I was angry. I was doing it because I was finished asking to be seen. And because some debts can only be settled when the people who owe them finally understand what they threw away. The Pines at Genesee sits high above the city, all glass and timber and money pretending to be rustic. That night the mountain air was sharp, but inside the ballroom it felt airless. I arrived alone. Lucas had left hours earlier for drinks with the guys, which meant I drove myself up the winding road in silence, the black dress moving against my skin like water. At the check-in table the girl hesitated, then slid the badge across. Henley, housekeeper. My mother-in-law was waiting, radiant in champagne silk. Perfect, she said, loud enough for the lobby to hear. Staff used the side entrance, dear. People turned. Phones lifted. Someone whispered, "That's the one who saved their company, right?" Another voice answered, "Guess not anymore." I clipped the badge to my dress and walked straight into the ballroom. Our table was front and center, close enough to matter, far enough to control the view. 8 place settings. 7 chairs. I stood beside the empty space they had so carefully preserved and felt 300 pairs of eyes settle on me like weights. Lucas arrived 20 minutes later, cheeks flushed from whiskey and triumph. He saw the badge, saw the missing chair, saw his mother's satisfied smile, and he laughed again, That same warm, easy laugh that used to make me feel safe. "Relax, hon," he said, lifting someone else's wine. "Food's for family." The room waited for me to shrink. I didn't. I reached for my ring, slid it off slowly, and set it in the exact center of the empty place setting. The soft click silenced the quartet. "Then I'm no longer yours," I said, just loud enough, just calm enough. The laughter stopped like someone pulled a plug. I turned and walked out. No rushing, no tears, just the steady click of my heels across marble, past tables of people who would talk about this night for years. Behind me, I heard my mother-in-law hiss, "Lucas, do something," and his stunned silence in answer. In the parking lot, the valet tried to hand me my ticket stub with trembling fingers. I smiled at him, small, polite, final, and drove down the mountain alone. Halfway home, I pulled over on a turnout where you can see the whole city glittering below. I opened the car door, let the cold night in, and finally let myself shake. Not from fear, from relief so sharp it felt like grief. Then I took out my phone and texted Marcus Reed, my second in command. "Execute everything. Tonight." 3 words. That was all it took. By the time I reached Wash Park, the first accounts were already frozen. By morning, the SEC had the files. By noon on Monday, the partners at Lucas's firm were calling an emergency meeting they would never invite him to again. I never raised my voice. I never had to. The truth did it for me. Months later, on a quiet winter morning with snow dusting the windows of my new Lodo office, Zuri showed up unannounced. She stood in the doorway wearing a simple wool coat, no designer labels, no 3-carat ring. Just my sister-in-law, the only one who ever felt like a sister, holding 2 paper cups of coffee and eyes that had learned how to look straight at things. "I left them," she said, handing me a cup. "For good this time." We sat on the floor of my office because the furniture hadn't arrived yet, backs against the wall, watching snow fall over the city. She told me how Connor's company collapsed the week after the party, bots for users, fake partnerships, all of it exposed. How her mother tried to force her to stay engaged for appearances. How she finally understood that the people who laughed at my missing chair had never once asked if I was okay. "I chose the wrong family," she said quietly. "I want to choose the right one now." I didn't cry. I just reached over and took her hand. That was the day I stopped being the woman who saved everyone except herself. Nexus Advisory grew faster than I ever imagined, not because of who I knew in boardrooms, but because word spread about the consultant who could save a business without destroying the people in it. CEOs started calling from Detroit, Cleveland, places the coasts had written off. They didn't care where I went to school or who my husband used to be. They cared that I showed up, listened, and fixed what was broken. Lucas's fall was quieter than anyone expected. No screaming matches, no drunken porch scenes. Just a man watching everything he thought defined him disappear. Accounts frozen, equity seized, name removed from the letterhead. Last I heard, he was living in his childhood bedroom in Colorado Springs, answering phones for someone else's private equity shop. He wrote once, a short letter that arrived forwarded from the old townhouse. I read it, folded it neatly, and put it in the trash without answering. My mother-in-law lost the Greenwood Village house, the watches, the membership at the club where she used to hold court. I don't know where she landed. I stopped keeping track. Some nights I walk through the new office after everyone's gone home. On the wall between my degree and the first check I ever earned consulting hangs the housekeeper badge, professionally framed. Clients always ask about it. I tell them the truth. They tried to tell me where I belonged. Turns out they were right, just not the way they meant it. I belong at the table I build myself, surrounded by people who don't need me to shrink to feel tall. People like Marcus, who stayed when others would have run. Like Zuri, who's finishing her MBA and already teaching other women how to spot the quiet kind of fraud that hides behind charm. Like the brewery owner in Fort Collins who sent me a case of his best stout every Christmas because I kept his grandfather's dream alive. That empty chair at the Pines at Genesee wasn't punishment. It was permission. Sometimes losing everything isn't the end.